You can't imagine how many secrets the United States hold. Today, you'll learn about mystical places that seem made by movie screenwriters. From anomalous zones where compasses go haywire to ghost towns where time seems to have stopped. These stories will keep you up at night, making you wonder if all the mysteries in the world are worth uncovering. In a world where every corner holds its own puzzle, we will reveal only the most thrilling one. Are you ready to dive into an atmosphere of mystery and the unexplained? This is a journey that will send shivers down your spine. Serpent Mound, Ohio. The Serpent Mound in Ohio is one of the most famous earthworks in the world. This gigantic mound, stretching 396 meters and 40 centimeters long and rising 9 meters and 80 centimeters above the ground, takes the shape of a serpent gliding across the landscape, ending with a coiled tail and an open mouth ready to swallow an egg. The mound follows the terrain's contour, its head looming over a steep slope near a stream. Scientists have compared this figure to natural phenomena, including the sun and a frog's body, and also suggested it could be the remains of a platform. To the west of the serpent-shaped mound lies a triangular mound about 9 meters, 70 centimeters wide, creating the impression that the serpent is about to attack its prey. Researchers believe the structure may have served as a fortification to protect Ohio Valley locals between 1000 and 1550 AD. This theory is based on the discovery of charcoal about 1,000 years old, and does not provide a definitive answer to the mound's purpose. To this day, the purpose of the Serpent Mound remains a mystery. Some experts claim it was possibly used for religious rituals by the ancient Adena people, while others see evidence of an astronomical observatory. The structure's alignment with the setting sun and lunar phases on the day of the summer solstice adds an extra layer of mystique. The Eternal Flame Falls, New York. In Shale Creek Preserve, Chestnut Ridge Park, New York, lies a natural phenomenon like science fiction, the Eternal Flame Falls. Concealed behind the cascade of water, a small cave harbors a bright flame, sustained by natural gas seeping up through the Earth's rock. The flame burns continuously, undisturbed by surrounding water, constant year-round. Locals see it as a symbol of perseverance and mystery, while scientists puzzle over the gas's origin and its continuous supply. Occasionally, the flame may temporarily go out, but park visitors never leave it unattended, reigniting the gas vent with a match. Local legend says the person who rekindles the flame will have good luck for long. A mysterious place. California. This mysterious place is a zone of gravitational anomalies in sequoia forests near the city of Santa Cruz, California. This area, which is a circle with a diameter of 46 meters, is known for its unusual physical phenomena. Here, the laws of nature seem to be broken. Objects can move upward along a sloped surface, and people feel their height change depending on their position. Many visitors report a sense of disorientation and mild dizziness. Various theories attempt to explain these phenomena, from magnetic fields to optical illusions. None have received scientific confirmation. Hence, this mysterious place attracts enthusiasts of mysticism and unexplained phenomena. I have described these and other phenomena on my Telegram channel, Unusual America, where I share incredible stories from life in the USA and important news. Come visit, read, and subscribe. The Marfa Lights, Texas. The Marfa Lights are a mysterious phenomenon observed in the desert of West Texas, where glowing orbs appear in the night sky. These lights display bizarre behavior, although some patterns can still be traced. The size of these orbs is comparable to a basketball and their color varies. They are white, but red and blue are also seen. Witnesses describe their movement as smooth and graceful, but sometimes they suddenly speed up, causing a sense of fear in observers. Note that the lights always keep their distance from people and disappear when someone tries to approach them. This phenomenon has been observed for over 100 years, and during this time, many studies have tried to determine the nature of these lights. Some suggest they might be reflections from car headlights or atmospheric effects, but to this day, the mystery of the Marfa Lights remains unsolved. Legends link their appearance to ghostly spirits, or even to sightings of unidentified flying objects. Bell Witch Cave, Tennessee. The Bell Witch Cave is tied to one of the most famous ghost stories in the United States. In the early 19th century, the Bell family in Tennessee experienced terrifying events believed to be caused by an evil spirit. This spirit was attributed to Kate Batts, known locally as a witch and fortune teller. According to rumors, she decided to punish family head John Bell for a long-ago mistake from his youth. After Kate's death, her spirit began to terrorize the family, especially John, making him ill and eventually causing his death. The story became so popular that Richard Bell, John's son, later published a book called Our Family Troubles, detailing the events. Paranormal experts still debate this story. Some see it as a classic poltergeist case, while others believe it is linked to demonic forces. The Bell Witch Cave, just 150 meters from the former Bell family farm site, is considered by many to be the spirit Kate Batts' refuge. Legend says this is where she planned her attacks and rested. Today, the cave is on private property and open to visitors during summer. Winchester House, CA. The Winchester House in San Jose, California is a massive mansion with numerous architectural oddities and unexpected features. Among them are staircases that lead to dead ends, doors that open into walls, and windows that look into other rooms. Sarah Winchester, heiress to the fortune made from the production of the famous rifle, believed she was haunted by the souls of those killed by Winchester rifles. To appease these spirits, she continuously expanded her house for 38 years, right up until her death. As a result, the house became a complex labyrinth some believed to be a trap for spirits. According to Sarah Winchester's biographers, she regularly received advice from the spirits of her late husband and daughter, holding seances in her specially equipped room. This room had one entrance but as many as 3 exits. Sarah died at the age of 80 from a heart attack and was buried next to her husband and child. To this day, there is no consensus among experts about why this house was built. Most believe it is linked to Sarah's deep faith in supernatural forces and her interest in the occult. 5 months after her death, the house opened to tourists. Even today, the Winchester House continues to attract people with its mysterious history. If you get distracted by the sights, it's easy to have an accident. If you've been in a car accident in America and don't know what to do next, where to turn for help, how to find a competent lawyer, or how to get compensation if you don't have insurance, the company DTP America has helped its clients secure $21 million in compensation. Here you will get answers to all your questions. The link is in the description.
السلام عليكم وأهلا وسهلا فيكم في قناة 4 للتسويق. بهذه القناة عندي هدف ورؤية، أبغى أي أحد في العالم العربي يعرف أساسيات التسويق.
Coral Castle, Florida. The Coral Castle in Homestead, Florida, is a unique stone structure built single-handedly by Edward Leeds Scullin in the early 20th century. This grand structure includes a square 2-story tower complex, a 12-meter obelisk, and various stone sculptures. Many of these constructions weigh over 25 tons. However, Leeds Scullin, who was short about 152 centimeters talent light, weighing less than 45 kilograms, claimed that he moved and worked the stones by himself, relying on his knowledge of magnetism and earth energy. The mystery of how he managed to accomplish such a feat remains one of the greatest enigmas. Edward built his creation over 20 years using more than 1,100 coral blocks that he quarried from the coast. Researchers who have studied Leeds Scullin's work suggest he may have been able to generate an electromagnetic field that allowed him to easily move heavy stone. To carry out the project, the architect chose a site with a strong diamagnetic field, which might have made his work easier. The Oregon Vortex in Oregon, near Gold Hill, is another place where the laws of physics seemingly lose their power. This area is famous for its optical illusions and gravitational anomalies. Visitors report feelings of disorientation, witnessing objects rolling uphill, and people's height appearing to change depending on where they stand on the ground. Some attribute this to a natural energy field, while others link these phenomena to the unique geological structure of the region. Nevertheless, local indigenous people treat the Oregon Vortex with caution, considering it a cursed area that they call the Forbidden Land. Some tribes say that their horses absolutely refuse to enter this land, adding a paranormal aspect to what happens there. The Georgia Guidestones. Georgia. The Georgia Guidestones are granite monoliths inscribed with 10 principles for humanity in different languages. Erected in Elbert County, Georgia, on March 22, 1980, the day of the spring equinox, these monuments resemble the famous British Stonehenge. However, unlike Stonehenge, the Georgia Guidestones were precisely aligned with the cardinal directions and had 4 6-meter-tall granite pillars with universal instructions in 8 world languages: English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian. The origin of these stones and identity of who commissioned them is a mystery. The 10 principles inscribed on them, including a proposal to limit the world's population to below 500 million, sparked conspiracy theories and speculation about the true purpose of this monument. In 2022, the Guidestones were mysteriously destroyed, leaving more questions. Devil's Tower, Wyoming. Rising nearly 275 meters above the surrounding landscape, Devil's Tower in Wyoming is a majestic natural formation with profound cultural significance. Native American tribes like the Lakota and Kiowa have revered this tower as sacred. Legend has it that the grooves on its walls were made by the claws of a giant bear trying to reach children who had turned into stars. The tower's unique shape and mysterious origin inspire awe and wonder. Every year, about 500,000 tourists visit this place. Not everyone dares to climb to the top, but a look at this unassailable mountain and a few breathtaking photos make it unforgettable. The Stanley Hotel, Colorado. The Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, became widely known for serving as the inspiration for Stephen King's novel, The Shining. Legends of ghosts surround it, and many guests and staff report strange occurrences, such as flickering lights, ghostly apparitions, and unexplained sounds. One of the most famous ghosts is believed to be Freelan Oscar Stanley, the hotel's first owner, who is said to still watch over his creation. The hotel's eerie atmosphere attracts paranormal enthusiasts, and the current owners maintain this image by offering tours of the hotel's most sinister areas and joining reality shows. Even the most impressionable guests sometimes believe in the reality of ghost encounters, and maybe some may luckily find something supernatural in the hotel halls. The Bennington Triangle, Vermont. The Bennington Triangle is a region in southwestern Vermont where from 1945 to 1950 several unexplained disappearances occurred. Missing people disappeared, prompting theories of paranormal, UFOs, and a serial killer. Since the 1920s, Native Americans called this area cursed. Besides disappearances, strange sounds and unusual creatures were reported in the forest. The place has become shrouded in legends and real unexplained incidents, which makes it eerie. Despite extensive searches, no convincing explanations for the disappearances have ever been found, leaving the Bennington Triangle an eternal mystery. The mystery of Roanoke, North Carolina. The disappearance of the Roanoke colony is one of the oldest and unsolved mysteries in American history. In 1587, more than 100 settlers landed on Roanoke Island. But 3 years later, when a supply ship arrived, the colony was found abandoned with no signs of violence. The only clue was the word Croatoan carved into a tree. Fate of the colonists is unknown. One theory suggests Native Americans may have offered settlers to leave the island and move to mainland. Over time, the colonists could have gone farther away, assimilating with local tribes and blending into Native American culture. Balanced Rock, Colorado. The Balanced Rock in Colorado is a unique natural phenomenon that seems to defy laws of physics. Many millions of years ago, a shallow inland sea stretched across what is now Colorado. Over time, it turned into sandstone. During the formation of the Rocky Mountains, some soft sandstone was eroded, leaving the Garden of the Gods in Colorado and its main attraction, Balanced Rock. This astonishing rock formation impresses with its size, but the most fascinating thing is how precariously it balances on the surface. as if it's about to roll down at any moment. From a scientific point of view, the boulder is attached to a stone pedestal or column so thin, it gives the impression it can barely hold the rock in place. The American Stonehenge. In Salem, New Hampshire, there is a mysterious place called the American Stonehenge. It is a complex of stone structures, chambers, and large slabs that resemble the famous Stonehenge in England. The true purpose of this place remains a mystery to this day. Many believe that the arrangement of the stones was used for astronomical observations, as it aligns with solar and lunar events such as the solstice. Radiocarbon dating shows some artifacts at this site may be about 4,000 years old, leading to various speculations about its creators. Some theories point to Native Americans, while others suggest that it could have been ancient European explorers. Despite ongoing research, the purpose and origin of America's Stonehenge remain a mystery, attracting both history enthusiasts and seekers of the unknown. The mystical places of the United States captivate with their enigma and make one ponder the existence of something beyond scientific understanding. Whether you believe in legends or seek rational explanations, these unusual and culturally significant places will captivate your imagination. That's all for today. Thank you for watching.
افتح يا رمرم يا عم افتح. مفيش برضو.
أستاذ حرامي بيه، أنا علي بابا في خدمتك، أساعدك إزاي؟
نسيت كلمة السر.
طيب هو أنت جربت ريد بول؟
At the dawn of hunting season, in one of the swampy corners of Florida, where the tropics seemed to merge with untamed wilderness, local rangers received a call that would be etched in their memory for a long time. One of the fishermen noticed something in the water so enormous that at first he mistook it for an overturned boat. Only when the boat slowly began to move and with a rustle emerged from the murky water did it become clear. It was a crocodile, but not just a large alligator, of which Florida has plenty. This was a monster. Its body measured over 15 feet long, and its weight approached a ton. Its enormous snout, studded with teeth the size of a human finger and eyes gleaming with a predatory shine, inspired genuine terror. It turned out to be a male American alligator over 60 years old. He had lived in the local swamps for decades, feeding on anything he could find, from fish to raccoons and, according to rumors, even a couple of pet dogs. Scientists discovered that its metabolism had slowed to a minimum, allowing it to accumulate mass and remain unnoticed. This monster, lurking in the murky water, became the largest ever recorded in this region. Journalists quickly picked up the story, dubbed it the Florida Monster, and tried to organize an exhibition. But biologists insisted the animal had to be returned to the wild. It was tagged with a GPS tracker and released far from human settlements, into a place where the swampy lands could accommodate such a titan. But if a crocodile can leave a person stunned just by its appearance, then the next creature turns the very concept of size into something entirely different. A whale giant with the weight of a world. In the depths of the world's oceans lives a creature that is literally bigger than a bus, heavier than a tank, and louder than a jet plane. This is the blue whale, the most massive animal ever to inhabit our planet. Even dinosaurs cannot compare to its size. An adult male can reach 100 feet in length and weigh up to 200,000 pounds. That's the equivalent of 15 elephants stacked on top of each other. But its greatness is not just in its weight. The heart of a blue whale is about the size of a small car, and its massive tongue weighs almost as much as an adult bison. The main vein of this ocean giant is so wide that a child could easily swim through it. And despite its gigantic form, it primarily feeds on krill, tiny shrimp-like crustaceans that the whale carefully filters from the water using thousands of delicate baleen plates. The blue whale is also a record holder for loudness. Its call can be heard underwater for hundreds of miles. It's not just a sound, it's a vibration that penetrates the depths of the water like a warning to other giants. He rules here. But even such a creature once nearly disappeared. In the 20th century, commercial whaling brought the magnificent blue whale to the very brink of extinction. Today, their numbers are slowly recovering, and watching these gentle giants in the wild is truly one of the most mesmerizing sights that nature has to offer. Imagine an 80-foot-long shadow appearing beneath your boat, and then, suddenly, a gigantic silhouette surfaces, shooting a powerful spout of water upward like a geyser. But if this marine titan impresses with its sheer mass, the next creature intrigues with how it manages to be so long while remaining almost invisible. A snake as long as a bus. Deep in the Amazon jungle, where tropical darkness conceals secrets born of millennia of evolution, lurks one of the planet's most fearsome inhabitants, the giant anaconda. Its size is neither an exaggeration nor a legend. The longest officially documented specimen reached nearly 30 feet in length. That's as long as a standard school bus. And all of it is pure muscle, covered in greenish-black scales, perfect for camouflage in the waters of tropical rivers. The anaconda is an ambush predator. It doesn't chase its prey, it waits, under the cover of foliage or in murky water like a living trap. And when the victim approaches, be it a capybara or even a caiman, it bursts from its hiding place with astonishing speed. But what is most striking is the way it kills. The anaconda is not venomous, it suffocates its prey. It coils itself around its target's body, tightening its grip each time the prey exhales until there is complete silence. After that comes swallowing. Yes, this is not a myth. A large anaconda is capable of swallowing prey wider than itself. Thanks to the unique flexibility of its skull and jaws, it literally stretches itself. And if the anaconda is impressive for its length, the next creature is frightening because you might not notice it until it's right on your face. A spider the size of a face. Spiders rarely inspire affection, but if you're afraid of them at their usual size, just imagine what it's like to encounter a spider as big as a human face. The Goliath bird-eater, which lives in the jungles of South America, is the absolute king of spiders. Its leg span can exceed 1 foot. That's not a mistake. 1 foot! Its legs are covered in bristles like thin roots, curved and highly sensitive to the slightest movement in the air. Unlike its smaller relatives, this spider does not spin webs. It hunts like a predator. It attacks, knocks its prey down, and sinks its enormous fangs into it. Its bite is so powerful that it easily pierces the chitin of insects and even the skin of small mammals. On the Goliath's menu are toads, mice, and even small birds. That's where its name comes from. When defending itself, it makes a strange hissing sound, rubs its legs together, and can fling microscopic irritating hairs from its abdomen. These hairs cause intense burning on the skin and even temporary blindness if they get into the eyes. And although its bite is not fatal to humans, the experience is sure to be unforgettable. Researchers who have encountered the Goliath in the wild recall how it would run past their tents with the distinctive sound of clicking legs, as if someone had thrown branches onto dry leaves. Creatures of this scale don't just frighten you, they seem to blur the line between a horror movie and reality. And if a spider can evoke a truly primal fear, then the next creature is a real monster from a puddle. It looks funny until it opens its mouth. A frog straight out of a nightmare. At first glance, it's just a bulgy-eyed frog. But as soon as the African horned frog opens its mouth, it becomes clear that you're looking at one of the most ruthless predators among amphibians. Unlike its harmless relatives, it doesn't catch insects with its tongue. It hunts from ambush, burying itself in the ground and waiting, then as soon as prey approaches, it strikes in an instant. But what's truly frightening is that the frog is capable of swallowing prey as large as itself: mice, snakes, other frogs, and even birds. Its jaws are so strong that it can hold onto a human finger, and that causes real pain. In South Africa, there have been recorded cases where this frog attacked snakes and emerged victorious from the fight, holding the victim's tail in its jaws. Despite its strange appearance, it has an extremely aggressive temperament and can even lunge at a person if it feels threatened. In terrariums, it is called a living vacuum cleaner. It eats everything that moves. In the wild, almost nothing bothers it. Even birds try to keep their distance. The risk just isn't worth it. Inside this little barrel beats the heart of a true predator. But the next creature is neither an amphibian nor a reptile. This is a marine titan with legs resembling tentacles and the ability to paralyze with just its appearance. A giant crab from the ocean floor. Deep in the waters of the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Japan hides a creature that seems like an alien from another world. This is the Japanese spider crab, a true living artifact from the abyssal depths. Its limb span can reach up to 12 feet. That's more than the height of an average adult man with arms outstretched. At the same time, the crab's body itself is relatively compact, but its extremely long limbs create a truly intimidating impression. Its claws are like garden shears, and its movements are slow, almost mechanical. It seems to creep along, never losing sight of its target. These crabs are not predators, they are scavengers, but their appearance often frightens divers, especially in dark waters, where only a flashlight reveals this spider-like monster out of the gloom. What is especially astonishing is that Japanese spider crabs can live up to 100 years. Some researchers believe that their resistance to pressure and cold water allows their bodies to keep growing throughout their lives. There are even unconfirmed reports of crabs with a leg span of 15 feet. Despite their intimidating appearance, Japanese spider crabs are almost peaceful by nature, but just one glimpse of their silhouette in the water can make your heart skip a beat. especially if it's not just one but an entire group slowly moving along the seafloor like an army of skeletal soldiers. But what if the next ocean dweller is just as silent yet far more dangerous with its touch than with claws? The giant invisible jellyfish. You might not even notice it until it's too late. A little south of the Australian coast lives the giant Cyanea, also known as the lion's mane jellyfish. This isn't just a jellyfish, it's an underwater weapon of mass destruction. Its tentacles can span over 120 feet, which is longer than a blue whale. But length isn't everything. These tentacles are covered in stinging cells, capable of paralyzing small fish, or even causing a severe allergic reaction in humans. One careless encounter, and you'll feel hundreds of needles piercing your skin all at once. And the jellyfish's body itself is often almost transparent, making it nearly invisible in the water. Rising to the surface on cloudy days, it hunts anything that happens to come near. Scientists often compare it to a living ghost, majestic yet deadly. One particularly large specimen that was discovered washed up on the shore in Nova Scotia was so enormous that locals at first even mistook it for the remains of a sea monster. Its movements are graceful, almost hypnotic. It seems to glide through the water, leaving a trail of poisonous tentacles behind. This jellyfish is an example of how beauty can be deadly. But if the underwater world frightens with its silence and transparent menace, then the next chapter is a return to land where a giant greets you, grunting and wagging its tail. A piglet the size of a bear. When a hunter in Georgia spotted something black, massive, and fast in the forest, he thought it was a bear. But what emerged from the bushes turned out to be a pig. And not an ordinary one. Standing before him was Hogzilla, one of the largest domestic boars ever recorded. This monster weighed over 1,000 pounds. That's more than the combined weight of 2 adult men. He was the result of crossbreeding wild boars and domestic pigs raised under special conditions. It had tusks nearly a foot long, skin several inches thick, and such a powerful chest that even a bullet could get lodged in its tissue. This beast couldn't be contained in a regular pen. He would break wooden gates as if they were made of paper. When he was moved to a farmer's enclosure, they had to build fortifications as if for buffalo. Its behavior was aggressive and its appetite insatiable. He could eat a sack of corn in one sitting. The story of Hogzilla went viral. A photo of the enormous pig standing next to a hunter instantly spread across the internet, sparking thousands of discussions. Some said it was fake, others claimed it was the result of hormones. But experts confirmed it was all real. Such a thing is possible if you combine the genes of a wild predator with ideal fattening conditions. If that boar could frighten with its sheer size, the next hero is terrifying because of its genetic origin. It is half lion, half tiger. A head in the jaws of a lion. Imagine an animal that is stronger than a tiger, bigger than a lion, and looks as if it came straight out of a science fiction movie. This is a liger, a hybrid born from a lion father and a tigress mother. Unlike its parents, it's not just larger, it's a giant. The most famous liger in history is Hercules, who lives in a sanctuary in South Carolina. When standing on his hind legs, he is over 11 feet tall and weighs nearly 900 pounds. With a single swipe of his paw, he can knock down a horse. His face is bigger than a basketball, and his mouth is like a portal to another world. Interestingly, ligers are not found in the wild. They only appear in captivity, since the habitats of tigers and lions do not overlap. But when such a hybrid does appear, nature makes an exception. These animals possess traits from both parents. From the tiger, they inherit powerful paws and musculature. From the lion, the mane and certain behaviors. Ligers have an astonishing rate of growth. In the first 2 years, they double the size of a typical lion. Scientists still do not fully understand why their bodies seem to have no limits. It is possible that this is due to the growth-inhibiting genes from each parent neutralizing each other. This animal is like a mythical creature, only real, and on top of that, social, capable of learning and forming attachments. And now we come to the conclusion. These giants are not legends, not exaggerations, but true records of nature. They prove that our planet is still full of surprises, sometimes frightening, sometimes astonishing, but always real.
I'm honestly shocked by how much the creators of the famous cartoon The Simpsons have managed to predict. And today, I'd like to tell you in more detail about how you could have made money thanks to this cartoon, or avoided the consequences of a global crisis. Moreover, they even predicted real mutants on our planet, but I'll probably save that for the end of the video. Enjoy watching The Simpsons Predictions. You've probably seen tons of memes, news articles, and other posts about how The Simpsons have once again predicted some big headline. The first thing that comes to my mind is the scene from the episode where Donald Trump wins the election. or the comedic episode about the revival of the Soviet Union. But as I see it, all of these are such popular and widespread facts that literally everyone has heard about them, so it's not all that interesting to talk about them anymore. So I decided to gather some lesser-known facts for you, ones that few people have heard of. And let's start perhaps with a rather creepy story. So, in the 19th episode of the 5th season of The Simpsons, something happened. Homer Simpson brought home some leftover food from the school cafeteria, which was prepared by lunch lady Doris. And everything would have been fine, if not for the cooking process. The episode clearly shows Doris using horse parts to prepare the food. All of this is presented in a humorous way. But who would have thought that something like this could happen in real life? In 2013, a major scandal broke out in Europe. Tests conducted in Ireland revealed the presence of horse DNA in frozen beef burgers. It soon became clear that horse meat was present in various meat products sold in supermarkets and restaurants all across Europe. And the most horrifying part is that such products ended up in the kitchens of ordinary schools. That's how it is. The predictions of The Simpsons. Farms on skyscrapers. Alright, let's move on to calmer and kinder predictions. Because honestly, I was horrified by the previous fact. So, in one of the episodes that aired on March 19th, 2000, the writers showed their vision of the future. In the cartoon, Bart sees what his life will be like 30 years later. In this episode, Lisa becomes the president of the United States, and the world undergoes significant changes. And the most interesting thing is that they showed farms on the rooftops of skyscrapers. Back then, this seemed to people like something incredible and far off. But today, there's already a special concept involving the creation of vertical farming. Essentially, plants are grown right inside buildings or on their rooftops. One of the first and most well-known projects of this kind was a farm in Singapore. And in New York, a company has also started building greenhouses on the rooftops of buildings. They produce vegetables and fruits there and then sell them at local markets. I would also like to talk about why this technology has become popular. The fact is that vertical farms allow for more food to be grown in a smaller area, which is especially important in densely populated cities. And growing food close to where it will be consumed also reduces transportation costs and time. So in big cities, you can always find fresh vegetables. And emissions into the atmosphere will be much lower due to the lack of delivery. Mutant tomatoes. Do you think The Simpsons can only predict standard things, political events, and the development of IT technologies? Not at all. I'm honestly shocked by the next prediction, because it seems completely unreal. So, in 1999, the 5th episode of the 11th season of The Simpsons was released. In it, Homer moves with his family to a farm, where he reminisces about his childhood. At the same time, he tries to grow tomatoes, but for some reason, nothing works out for him. And if you think that after that he invented some super-duper device to help him grow vegetables, then no. He simply took tomato seeds and mixed them with tobacco leaves, and as a result, he created an amazing hybrid product that he called Tomaco. In the cartoon, it looked just like an ordinary tomato, but at the same time it caused addiction in everyone who tried it. It seems like something impossible and fantastical, but such a hybrid actually exists in real life. In 2013, a team of Japanese scientists successfully created a unique tomato-tobacco hybrid as part of their research related to vaccine production. They were developing specially modified plants that could potentially help produce important medicinal substances. And why, you might wonder, did they choose such a strange and unusual approach? Personally, I don't understand. And while in the cartoon the creation of Tomaco was just a joke about people's addictions, in real life, this amazing hybrid helps scientists obtain useful medical compounds. How can you make money from The Simpsons? By the way, I recently discovered an amazing fact about The Simpsons. Did you know that with their help, you can actually increase your capital and even avoid the consequences of a crisis? Don't worry, I'm not advertising some shady organization. I'm only talking about the cartoon and games from this amazing universe. So, in 2012, a popular mobile game was released, where you had to complete a variety of different quests and carefully manage your very own Springfield. And in one of the updates, a quest was added where one of the characters says that Bitcoin is the currency of the future. The most amazing thing is that at that time, the world's first cryptocurrency was worth very little. And just a few years later, a single token could fetch thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. So, fans of The Simpsons could very well have invested money on the advice of their favorite characters and multiplied their wealth. And in the 24th episode of the 8th season, there was an episode in which The Simpsons predicted the future real estate market crisis that happened 10 years later. There are no specific dates or exact descriptions of what was happening in the universe of the cartoon. But the creators depicted the general state of the economy and the American dream. As a result, this episode became ubiquitous right before the most terrifying crisis of modern times, political predictions. In one of my previous videos, I already talked about how The Simpsons predicted Donald Trump coming to power. And in general, this fact is so well known and popular on the internet that I won't go over it again. But there were a few more political facts that could have been learned in advance from the cartoon. And in one of the episodes, the creators of the cartoon depicted Lisa, who became president, in a very interesting purple suit with cool accessories. Needless to say, Kamala Harris, who is the current vice president, wore exactly the same outfit at the inauguration in 2021. Oh, right. You probably know this fact too, since it's quite well known. But the next story isn't as popular on the internet. So, in the 4th episode of the 20th season of The Simpsons, Homer Simpson goes to vote for Barack Obama in the 2008 presidential election. To do this, he uses a special electronic voting machine. But when he selects Obama, the machine registers the vote for another candidate. And despite several attempts to vote differently, the machine kept choosing the wrong candidate. In the end, the machine swallows Homer. Needless to say, in the 2012 US presidential election, similar incidents occurred. In several states, such machines were also used, and voters encountered the problem of their choices being changed on their own. In our world, all of this led to quite serious scandals. And I am personally shocked that the writers of the cartoon were able to predict even this. In reality, predicting what will happen in the future is extremely difficult. For example, I always worry when I get behind the wheel of my car. What if I end up in an accident? But what should you do if this happens in another country? Have you gotten into an accident in America and don't know what to do next? Where can you turn for help? Where can you find a competent lawyer? How can you get compensation if you don't have insurance? The company DTP America has helped its clients receive a total of $21 million in compensation. Here you'll definitely get answers to all your questions. The link is in the description. They even predicted this. Honestly, I'm in shock. I've gathered a lot of facts that The Simpsons managed to predict. Of course, it's a pity I can't tell you about all of them. But if you want to see more, be sure to let me know in the comments. For now, I'll go ahead and continue my story. So, as I mentioned before, thanks to this cartoon, it's actually pretty easy to make money. But I was really surprised when I found out that The Simpsons can even predict specific deals between major companies. So, in 1998, the 5th episode of the 10th season of this remarkable cartoon was released. In this episode, Homer Simpson becomes friends with a couple of celebrities and helps them hide from the public in the city. And at one point, Homer shares his movie ideas with Ron Howard and later presents them to the company 20th Century Fox. And in one of the scenes, Ron enters the building of this company, and on it, there is a remarkable sign for a division of the Walt Disney Company. At that time, predicting something like this was simply impossible. It seemed that 20th Century Fox would continue to exist independently, since they were releasing so many cool and extremely popular movies. But in 2017, the deal began. As you might have guessed, Walt Disney was involved in it, and in the first quarter of 2019, it was finalized. The purchase of the studio cost Disney $71 billion. It's frightening to think that The Simpsons were able to predict a deal between such renowned companies 20 years before it happened. It really seems like the writers are from the future. Incredible scientific discoveries. So, are you still not convinced that The Simpsons are a real treasure trove of knowledge about the future? Then let me tell you about perhaps the biggest scientific prediction ever made in this cartoon. In the 2nd episode of the 10th season, Homer Simpson, going through a midlife crisis, decides to become an inventor, inspired by the life of Thomas Edison. In one of the scenes, he writes a complex equation on the board, which is connected to his inventive ideas. And out of curiosity, our modern scientists decided to take a look at what exactly Homer had drawn there. Everyone was absolutely shocked. The thing is, on the board there was an equation that predicts the mass of a particle similar to the Higgs boson. And even though it looks like a random collection of mathematical symbols, physicists later noticed that its results are actually very close to those of this remarkable element. For many years, the Higgs boson existed only on paper, because it was impossible to detect it with certainty. But in 2012, at the Large Hadron Collider, scientists were able to discover a particle whose properties match those of the Higgs boson. And the coolest part is that a year later, the scientists who had actually predicted its existence received the Nobel Prize in Physics. Of course, you might argue that the writers simply took and used a theoretical formula that scientists had created back in the 70s. But the fact that they decided to add her to the series about Homer trying to become an inventor personally amazes me. After all, they could have just shown him inventing some kind of smartwatch or virtual reality headset. By the way, speaking of that, smartwatches and other inventions. As I found out, The Simpsons even managed to predict those. In 1995, the 19th episode of the 6th season was released. In it, Lisa Simpson sees her future in the year 2010. It shows a lot of futuristic technologies and various changes in society. And one of these technologies is the smartwatch. One of the characters in the episode wears a watch that can perform various functions, including communication. And lo and behold, they look strikingly similar to modern smartwatches, like the Apple Watch. And the most amazing thing is that such gadgets appeared for us more or less around the same time. Apple introduced their first smartwatch in 2015. As you may know, they can sync with your phone, receive calls and send messages, as well as track physical activity. All the same features as in the Simpsons episode. And most importantly, the dates are actually almost identical. The difference is only 5 years. Personally, I'm shocked by such predictions, considering they were made 20 years in advance. It seems like the creators really do have a calendar 100 years into the future, and they release episodes decades in advance so they don't have to worry about it. Real-life scary mutants. By the way, in the 4th episode of the 2nd season, which aired in 1990, there was yet another prediction. It also, in its own way, told about something that actually happened in real life 20 years later. So, what happened there? Let me tell you now. Basically, in this particular episode, Bart Simpson accidentally catches a rather unusual three-eyed fish named Blinky in the lake right next to the nuclear power plant in Springfield. And, as you might expect, this event quickly becomes a real sensation in the town. Actually, the whole episode was much more about showing just how harmful nuclear power plants can be, and it suggests that we really should tighten environmental laws. And it seems to me that the creators were simply describing what happened in Argentina 21 years later. In 2011, near a nuclear power plant in Inai, local fishermen caught a three-eyed fish. It was an ordinary Volga pike perch, but with an extremely frightening anomaly. Naturally, all of this led to a huge wave of discussion and concern among ordinary citizens and environmentalists. Everyone started talking about the need to tighten environmental legislation. Basically, it was exactly the same as in the Simpsons episode. Just shocking. However, the exact reasons for this mutation were never determined. Many believe that it could have happened due to contamination of the reservoir by radiation or other chemicals. However, studies actually showed that nothing of the sort was ever found in the local ponds. Who knows what caused this amazing little fish to appear? In this video, I told you even more about the amazing predictions of The Simpsons. And what do you think? Is it possible that the creators really came to us from the future? Personally, I'm becoming more and more convinced of it. Let me know in the comments if you want to see more of this series. And thank you for watching.
There are moments when it seems like the universe itself takes justice into its own hands. In such cases, all that's left to say is, well, karma has worked, its principle is simply relentless. The bolder the act, the more spectacular the retribution. And especially in the USA, where surveillance cameras and smartphones turn the streets into a giant film set, karma simply has no chance of staying off screen. Here, every conflict can easily become a visual guide on how not to behave. Let's take a look at the most striking cases of instant karma across the United States of America. Camera, action, fine. A flagrant incident occurred on one of the busy highways in Connecticut. On a narrowing section of the highway, a driver in a Honda made a dangerous overtake, cutting off a peacefully riding motorcyclist and pushing him into the oncoming lane. The motorcyclist miraculously managed to avoid a collision and signaled to the careless driver to give him the right of way. However, she continued to persistently push him aside, seemingly confident in her impunity and that she was the main one on the road. Many drivers in similar situations resort to foul language and aggressive gestures. But this motorcyclist chose a different strategy. He remained calm and recorded the violation with his helmet camera. He immediately approached a police officer he encountered on the same road literally a minute later. The biker stopped right away and showed the officer the dashcam footage, which clearly captured the violation. The law enforcement officer immediately set off in pursuit of the violator. A few minutes later, she was stopped and fined $300 for the dangerous maneuver. A rather unpleasant injection against audacity. The published footage quickly became popular on social media, garnering thousands of views. And perhaps next time when someone wants to make a dangerous maneuver on the road, they will think twice. What if they are being filmed? Murphy's Law. An ordinary day for an elderly taxi driver from Pennsylvania could have ended in tragedy, but fate, against all odds, played out a scene from a comedy blockbuster. It all starts very tensely. When a passenger in a white mask with a gun appeared in the back seat of the taxi, the driver immediately realized it was a robbery. With trembling hands, he took out all his $11 from his pocket and handed them to the robber. The criminal was indignant. He was clearly expecting a bigger haul, but his disappointments didn't end there. Behind the taxi, as if on purpose, a police patrol stopped. The officers instantly assessed the situation. The slightly open door, the frightened face of the driver, the strange passenger in a mask. What the robber felt when he was suddenly pinned to the hood and handcuffed, one can only guess. The funniest part is that the taxi driver ended up keeping his money. As reported by the media, the detainee had already broken the law before, but now he is about to face a much more serious charge. This absurd case shows that crime not only ruins the lives of those who decide to go against the law, but it can also be surprisingly ridiculous. Slow and steady wins the race. On the busy highway leading to Port Everglades, an incident unfolded. An instructive scene worthy of a textbook on road etiquette. Several trucks, adhering to the speed limit, slightly slowed down the flow of traffic. A common situation when approaching a major port, but for the driver of the black car, these few minutes of waiting seemed like an unacceptable sacrifice. He sharply swerved to the right, driving onto what seemed like a convenient wide shoulder, but ended up stuck in a low area without help for a long time. It's unlikely he'll manage to get out of this foolish situation now. One must not forget that such troubles can happen to anyone, and it's not always due to our own fault. You've been in a car accident in America and don't know what to do next. Where to seek help? Where to find a competent lawyer? How to get compensation if you don't have insurance? The company DTP America has helped clients receive compensations, totaling $21 million. Here, they will definitely answer all your questions. Link in the description. Size matters. This incident occurred in a supermarket parking lot where one of the visitors decided that a shopping cart would be a great bonus to his purchases. Making sure no one was watching him, the man calmly got to work and loaded the shopping cart into the trunk of his car. That's where the problems began. The cart, which seemed so compact at first glance, turned out to be much larger than he anticipated. When the man tried to slam the trunk shut, the metal wheels pressed right against the rear window. A deafening crunch was heard, and within a second, the parking lot asphalt was covered with thousands of sparkling shards. The stunned thief froze in place, not believing his eyes. His adventure instantly turned into an expensive mistake. Quickly looking around, he pulled the cart out of the trunk and left it next to the shards. The only traces at the scene of the comical crime. A second before.
فودافون 5G. عيش سرعة صلاح في 50,000 مرة بأوسع تغطية في مصر.
Karma caught up with him in just a minute. This overconfident man decided to impress the camera. First, he casually tossed bundles of money towards the cameraman, and then, as if that wasn't enough, he pulled out a gun and started waving it around. However, life decided to teach him a lesson in good manners. Barely had he stepped away when police officers appeared around him with their weapons ready. It turned out that his antics were accidentally noticed by a passing patrol. The one who a minute ago was posing with a gun and money was now quietly standing in handcuffs. The money he had so carelessly thrown around became evidence, and the gun was grounds for a serious charge. It was especially ironic to see how quickly the situation changed. Life taught him a vivid lesson. Your behavior in front of the camera defines your character and the ability to take responsibility for your actions, especially when surrounded by armed police. The joke didn't work out. It all started with a harmless joke. The girl decided to prank her blonde friend. With a smile, she held an egg over his head, anticipating how the yolk would run down his hair. However, fate had a surprise in store for her. As intended, the egg cracked on the guy's head, but most of the yolk unexpectedly splashed out like a fountain, right into the prankster's face. The guy just blinked in confusion, while the girl ended up covered in raw omelette. Out of nowhere. This plan seemed so simple that at first glance nothing could go wrong. A man in a red cap entered the store at night, nervously looked around and headed straight to the beer section. Without much thought, he grabbed 2 packs of beer cans and rushed to the exit. At the most crucial moment, when he was just a step away from freedom, his legs betrayed him. Out of nowhere, he slipped and fell to the floor, sprawling right in front of the doors. The cans fell out and rolled across the floor, and the red cap slipped down over his eyes. And there was nothing left to do but quickly run away, taking only a few cans of the stolen beer. Nothing foreshadowed trouble. In the middle of the day, in a quiet American neighborhood, the owner of a black sports car decided to demonstrate the power of his vehicle. And he put on a show with a sad ending. With the characteristic roar of the engine, his car abruptly shot out from the parking spot, but instead of an impressive start, it resulted in an expensive embarrassment. Instead of an impressive acceleration, the driver almost immediately lost control of the car. The sports car made a sharp, unexpected maneuver, failed to maintain control, and crashed into a parked car on the other side of the road. The impact was so strong that it left significant damage on both the neighboring car and the sports car. The driver of the sports car received a fine for violating traffic rules. The owner of the damaged car had to contact the insurance company to claim compensation for the damage. The steps prevailed. On the gloomy street of the residential area, a man's figure appears. His movements are measured and calm. It seems as if he is just strolling, engrossed in a phone conversation. Methodically inspecting the porch, he finally notices his target. A neat cardboard box left at the front door of one of the houses. Ensuring there are no witnesses, he takes a quick step forward, a nimble bend, and now the package is securely hidden under his loose sweater. At first glance, it seems that nothing can stop him now. But the very first step turns out to be slippery. His foot suddenly slides to the side, the body loses balance and falls. The coveted cardboard box flies out from under the sweater onto the ground. The man turns onto his side. Several uncertain attempts to get up end in failure. Clenching his teeth, he manages to get up, but after a few steps, it becomes clear that he will only crawl to the nearest alley by morning. Caught, therefore a thief. A quiet day at the communications salon on the outskirts of Houston began as usual. The salespeople were preparing for the lunchtime rush of customers. A few visitors were choosing new phones, and a young mother was paying a bill at the counter. Nothing foreshadowed that in a few minutes. A story would unfold here that would make the news and become yet another vivid example of instant karma. Suddenly, a man of average height in a gray hoodie with a hood entered the door. His voice was trembling and his eyes were darting around the room. He immediately approached the counter and uttered a phrase that changed the course of events. All the money, put it in the bag. Quickly. At that moment, there were 3 women in the salon. Their reaction could serve as material for a textbook on behavior in emergency situations. Instead of panic, a sober assessment of the situation. Instead of hysteria, coordinated actions. The decisive moment came when the last of the women reached the exit. The automatic lock worked flawlessly, emitting that very click that divided the situation into before and after what was happening inside the store. The next 10 minutes could be observed through the glass door. The robber first froze in shock, then began to frantically yank the handle. When that didn't work, he resorted to more aggressive methods. With his shoulder, his foot, he even tried to break the glass with a chair, but the iron bars on the doors and windows withstood everything, marking the most telling moment. Came when the criminal, realizing the hopelessness of the situation, dropped to his knees and began begging the people outside to help him open the door. The arriving officers were met with the following scene. The robber was sitting on the floor with his hands raised and an expression of complete despair on his face. The arrest procedure went without incident. The criminal looked too broken. This story gained wide resonance not only because it was caught on video. The absurdity of this story is further enhanced by the fact that the same robber had already robbed them a week earlier. He left the store with $2,000 and several expensive smartphones. Instant response. A middle-aged man is crossing the road at a crosswalk when a car carefully stops in front of him, following the rules. It seemed like an ordinary situation, but suddenly the pedestrian starts hurling insults at the driver. A real storm of emotions in the middle of the roadway lasted no more than a few seconds. Waving his arms, the troublemaker completely forgot to look around, and his forehead forcefully meets the rest of the pole of the traffic light. His rage instantly turns to anger, then to even greater rage. The driver in the car, who became an unwitting witness to this scene, sees karma at work firsthand. Sometimes it works not only flawlessly, but also, and very quickly. You can't escape fate. In the quiet town of Bezel, Washington, a courier left 3 packages at the doorstep, one of which contained expensive medication. Shortly after the delivery, a suspicious car pulled up to the house and a young woman got out. She immediately rushed to the left-behind boxes. However, at the moment she grabbed the first package, something unexpected happened. The woman broke her leg, falling to the ground without noticing any obstacle in front of her. She continued to clutch the stolen box in her hands. Her accomplice, who stayed in the car, initially didn't understand what had happened. Seeing his partner lying on the ground writhing in pain, he jumped out of the car. While the woman was rolling on the asphalt, clutching her leg, her accomplice was frantically darting between her and the remaining packages. In the end, he loaded all the boxes into the car, somehow squeezed the injured accomplice in as well, and quickly fled. Later, the homeowner posted the surveillance footage, accompanied by an ironic comment, "I love karma, it dealt with them appropriately." Golf tour in Florida? Sunny Florida once again became the setting for an absurd yet instructive road incident. An intoxicated local clearly overestimated his ability to drive a golf cart, even though those around him unanimously urged him not to get in. Behind the wheel, observing how he struggled to move his legs, he started off quite confidently, but after driving the first 5 feet, the golf cart suddenly jerked to the side, and our hero, unable to control it, gracefully tumbled onto the asphalt. Of course, sometimes you just need to stop in time, and it seems it didn't end all that badly. Quick retribution. Another shopping trip to a Walmart supermarket turned into quite a show when an enraged customer decided to confront a store employee in an unusual way. Instead of a verbal altercation, the man attempted to ram the employee with a shopping cart at full speed, but the Walmart employee was not easily intimidated. Dodging the first strike, he deftly grabbed the aggressor's arm as he tried to turn around for another charge. What happened next left all the witnesses frozen in place. One precise hit, and the enraged customer fell to the floor like a sack of potatoes. It was dangerous. A young cyclist decided to showcase his skills. Standing on the rear wheel, he skillfully pranced down the road, completely unaware of how the fine line between a stunt and recklessness began to blur. Caught up in the moment, he rolled onto the oncoming lane, where he continued to balance on one wheel in front of passing cars. Several times he miraculously managed to avoid collisions. Perhaps that's why he noticed the approaching car too late. Next time, we hope he will use the bicycle as intended. VIP area. The concert atmosphere was boiling with the energy of the huge crowd when one of the spectators, riding a wave of adrenaline, decided to climb over the barrier into the VIP section, right in front of the security guard. But what he assumed was a breach in security received an almost instant and very telling response. The security guard on the bike didn't even flinch until the intruder was half a meter away from him. Then, a sharp slap to the face, and the overconfident guy was already staggering back, clutching his reddened cheek. The sound of the slap echoed through the rows, causing everyone to freeze. The crowd around erupted in laughter and exclamations. Dozens of phones shot up to capture the shameful retreat of the daredevil. The security guard, without even glancing at the intruder, returned to his work, occasionally rubbing his palm. The only sign that the incident even took place. And the video of his professional reaction was already spreading across social media. Thank you for watching. Karma caught up with him in just a minute.
This is the most powerful hurricane in the history of the United States. And this is the fire that burned down half of Chicago. And what about the heat wave that melted car wheels and killed several thousand people? Yes, these are the craziest disasters in all of America's history. But what kind of devastation did they leave behind? You'll see in this video. And I'll start with the largest volcanic eruption in US history. On May 18th, 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted, and the area around the volcano turned into a zone of complete devastation. Look at this. It's a true natural apocalypse. More than 500 square kilometers, once covered with pristine green forests, clear mountain streams, and tranquil lakes, turned into a monotonous gray wasteland. Terrifying. The entire area was buried under shattered timber, covered by a smoking gray plain and strewn with an avalanche of debris beneath a layer of ash. At the time, US President Jimmy Carter visited the disaster site and compared it to the surface of the moon. Scientists who studied the aftermath of the eruption were astonished by what they saw. They predicted that nothing would ever grow here again, let alone the recovery of wildlife. But look now, these grim predictions turned out to be wrong. Within 3 years after the eruption, scientists found that 90% of the original plant species were growing again in the blast zone. Such a catastrophe, and yet nature was able to heal itself so quickly. Isn't it amazing? Take a look at these terrifying images of destruction. In 1900, Galveston was the bustling jewel of Texas, the largest and most vibrant port city, home to millionaire mansions and some of the very first electric streetlights in the country. But everything changed on September 8th, when a hurricane with winds of 225 kilometers per hour struck the coast, causing a 4-meter storm surge. The island, home to 37,000 people, was almost wiped off the face of the earth. According to various estimates, between 6,000 and 8,000 people died, making this storm the deadliest in US history. Among the terrifying and destructive consequences of the storm were trolley tracks torn from their docks and smashing into buildings, and the relentless, howling wind, which survivors described as 1,000 little devils screaming and whistling in your ear. But that was not the worst of it. The greatest tragedy occurred at the St. Mary's orphanage. 93 children and 10 nuns had taken refuge there. A wave lifted the building from its foundation and swept it away. In desperation, the nuns tied themselves to 80 of the children with clotheslines. Their bodies were found in this way, one on top of another. Out of all the orphans, only 3 survived. But let's talk about modern times as well. On May 22, 2011, a powerful tornado struck the city of Joplin, Missouri. It was just like in the best American movies. The strong wind flipped over cars, tore roofs off houses, and lifted small buildings into the air. The bodies of people who didn't manage to find shelter were found several kilometers away. Brutal, right? Senator Ron Richard, who flew over the affected areas, noted that the tornado swept across the land like a lawnmower through tall grass. A nice comparison, though he's not wrong. From above, you can see a wide brown trail. The top layer of earth was literally plowed up along with buildings and cars. The tornado reached a width of 1.6 kilometers, which is simply incredible for such a phenomenon. As a result of this disaster, 158 people died and 1 to 100 were injured. The damages amounted to up to $2.8 billion, making this tornado the most expensive in US
كرانش للمقرمشين.
history. Well, where would we be without fire? On April 18, 1906, the residents of San Francisco woke up at 5:12 in the morning. They had little time to understand what was happening before real chaos began. A minute later, the city, with a population of 450,000, was shaken by an earthquake measuring 7.9 on the Richter scale, which created a 296-mile-long crack along the San Andreas Fault. Pretty intense, right? But the earthquake was only the beginning of a terrible disaster. In the city, hundreds of fires broke out due to damaged gas pipes and electrical short circuits. They raged for 3 days and destroyed nearly 500 city blocks. When the smoke finally cleared, local authorities estimated that more than 3,000 people had died as a result of the earthquake and the subsequent fires. More than 28,000 buildings were destroyed, and over 200,000 residents were left homeless. Many had to find shelter in makeshift cottages set up in city parks and live there for several months until the city could be at least partially restored. Can you imagine how much property ordinary people lost? Yes, if something like that happened today, just the number of cars that would burn would be several tens of thousands. By the way, what should you do if you damage your car or get into an accident in the USA? Where can you turn for help? Where can you find a competent lawyer? How can you get compensation if you don't have insurance? The company DTP America has helped its clients receive $21 million in compensation. Here, you will definitely get answers to all your questions. The link is in the description. But since I've mentioned fire, here's water for you as well. In 1889, a tsunami unexpectedly struck central Pennsylvania, destroying the city of Johnstown with a wall of water 12.96 meters high. Within a few minutes, 1,600 homes were wiped off the face of the earth, and 2,209 people died. What happened? The disaster was caused by the failure of a dam that was holding back 20 million tons of water in Lake Conemaugh. This artificial reservoir was located 22 kilometers from Johnstown in the mountains. The lake and dam belonged to the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club, whose members included influential industrialists such as Andrew Carnegie and Henry Clay Frick. The club blocked the dam's drainage pipes to maintain the fish population and allowed the lake to overflow with the spring rains. Yes, you understood correctly. The fishermen actually caused a deadly flood. On May 31st, the dam could not withstand the pressure and collapsed, sending a massive torrent of water rushing down the mountainside. The wave gained speed and strength, sweeping away trees and boulders in its path. Locomotives weighing more than 70 tons were tossed aside by the force of the water. Some were eventually found 1.5 kilometers from the railroad. The bodies of the victims were discovered over 560 kilometers to the west. This disaster left a deep mark on the history of Johnstown and became one of the most terrifying tragedies of its time. And of course, what would it be without American hurricanes? Meet Sandy. This powerful tropical cyclone, which formed at the end of October 2012, affected many regions, including Jamaica, Cuba, the Bahamas, Haiti, the coast of Florida, the northeastern United States, and eastern Canada. The northeastern states of the US, such as New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut, were especially hard hit. In 2012, Sandy became the 18th named tropical cyclone and the 10th in the Atlantic that year. It began to form on October 22nd and became a full-fledged tropical storm in just 6 hours. Then the hurricane slowly moved north, heading toward the Greater Antilles, gradually gaining strength. As a result of this hurricane, more than 60 people died in the Caribbean region and the Bahamas. The total damage amounted to more than $70 billion. Thousands of destroyed homes and overturned cars. We can only hope that the victims received the necessary compensation, since not everyone may have had insurance. And this is what a hurricane that caused $108 billion in damage looks like. Katrina formed on August 19, 2005. In just 5 days, it evolved from a cyclone into a tropical storm, moving across the Bahamas toward the coast of Florida. On August 25th, Katrina reached hurricane status and made landfall for the first time, destroying everything in its path. On August 28th, just 1 day before Katrina made landfall again, the mayor of New Orleans declared a mandatory evacuation of the city. People fled, leaving all their belongings behind. However, 150,000 people were unable to evacuate due to various financial and housing problems. Many of them simply did not have cars or the means to rent housing elsewhere. Some residents deliberately chose to stay, unwilling to leave their pets behind or fearing for the safety of their property. Others believed that their homes would withstand the storm. No one expected that New Orleans would be flooded. Katrina destroyed 53 hydraulic structures that protected the city from flooding. The areas located below sea level were completely flooded. As the investigation revealed, the destruction was caused by systemic errors in the design and construction of the levees after Hurricane Betsy in 1969. Due to incorrect calculations, the piles were driven to a depth of 5 meters instead of 9 to 14 meters, which saved $100 million, but led to disaster. Official data reports 1,836 fatalities. Most of them did not die from the hurricane itself, but from the flooding caused by the destruction of the levees. 71% of the victims were over 60 years old, and many of them drowned in their homes or died due to a lack of medical care, food, and clean water. Take a look at this footage. In the fall of 1871, specifically on October 8th, one of the most devastating disasters in the country's history occurred in the upper Midwest of the United States. The fire engulfed about 6,000 square kilometers of dry land and claimed the lives of more than 2,500 people. A severe drought created the perfect conditions for fires to break out, which started near the small town of Peshtigo, Wisconsin. Powerful winds intensified the flames, turning them into raging firestorms. Fire whirls leapt over obstacles and bodies of water. When residents heard a terrifying roar, reminiscent of the sound of a freight train, many rushed to the river, hoping that the water would save them from the fire. A local priest described shocking scenes. The fire jumped across the river just as it did over land. It seemed as if the very air was on fire. Our safety was under constant threat. We survived only because we kept pouring water over our faces and heads and kept splashing the water with our hands. But unfortunately, not everyone was so lucky. A group of people who hid in the water tower perished alive. Some fathers, seeing no other way to protect their families, made a terrible choice. They killed their children and themselves to avoid dying in the flames. Brutal, right? The heat was so intense that the sand on the streets of Peshtigo turned into glass. And now, take a look. The largest earthquake of modern times in the United States. On August 23, 2011, at exactly 1:51 p.m. local time, Virginia experienced an exceptionally powerful earthquake with a magnitude of 5.8. The epicenter was located 61 kilometers northwest of the city of Richmond, near the town of Mineral. The tremors were felt in the states of Michigan, South Carolina, and Massachusetts, as well as in the Canadian province of Ontario. Immediately after the earthquake, the buildings of Congress and the Pentagon were evacuated, as well as the FBI building in New York. In Virginia, 2 nuclear reactors were automatically shut down, and Newark Liberty and JFK airports in New York temporarily suspended flights. The earthquake caused damage to a number of significant buildings, including the Pentagon, the Washington National Cathedral, and Ronald Reagan Airport. The Washington Monument was also affected by the tremors. This earthquake was the strongest ever recorded in Virginia and the first earthquake in history to be registered in the District of Columbia. As I have already shown, there have been many destructive and deadly hurricanes in U.S. history. However, according to a new study by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, Hurricane Maria, which struck Puerto Rico on September 20th, 2017, may turn out to be one of the deadliest in history. Official data sources have officially reported 64 deaths from the Category 4 storm, but the destruction and evidence from local hospitals, as of now, point to much greater losses. Researchers from Harvard surveyed 3,299 households across the island and found that the mortality rate in Puerto Rico during the months following Hurricane Maria was, in fact, 62% higher than during the same period in the previous year. These additional deaths tragically amounted to 4,045 people in total, making Maria the second most deadly and devastating hurricane in U.S. history, claiming more lives than the September 11th attacks and Hurricane Katrina combined. The disasters caused by hurricanes highlight the need for preparedness and rapid response to natural catastrophes. And this story vividly demonstrates that their consequences can be devastating and long-lasting, especially in areas with high population density and weak infrastructure. The severe drought of 1988-1990 became recognized as one of the very worst drought episodes in U.S. history. Beginning in the year 1988, it continued through both 1989 and 1990, significantly affecting various regions of the country. The drought caused damage amounting to $155 billion in 2024 dollars, triggering some of the most severe dust storms since the 1930s. In February 1988, schools in South Dakota were closed due to a dust storm. In the spring, several weather stations set records for the lowest amount of precipitation, such as 55 days without rain in Milwaukee. In the United States, simultaneous heat waves claimed the lives of between 4,800 and 17,000 people. The drought also led to numerous forest fires, including the Yellowstone fires. At its peak, the drought covered 45% of the territory of the United States. Although this was a smaller area than the famous Dust Bowl of the 1930s, which was a catastrophic environmental disaster that affected approximately 70% of the country at that time, the drought that occurred from 1988 to 1990 became the most costly drought in US history, resulting in greater financial losses than any previous drought. But that wasn't the end of it. As soon as the heat subsided, rains and hurricanes began to arrive. In September 1988, Hurricane Gilbert finished off everything that was still intact. The catastrophic drought changed the landscape of many regions, especially in Yellowstone National Park. Terrifying, isn't it? As history shows, there is nothing more frightening and deadly than Mother Nature. And people always need to stay alert. After all, you can't control the elements. That's all for now. Subscribe to my channel and thank you for watching.
It's no secret to us that the standard of living varies greatly across different countries. But what's even more surprising is the fact that prices for the same goods and services can vary by several dozen times. I will tell you and compare the cost of the most popular products in different countries, but under one condition. Promise not to envy your neighbors. And at the end, especially for fans of beer and Apple technology, I will make a comparison on these items as well. There. In general, there is something to be surprised about. Prices for products and goods are an unstable variable that constantly changes depending on various factors. The USA, for example, has experienced different rates of price growth for food prepared at home and outside over the past decades. In 2020, prices for food prepared at home increased by 3.5%, while dining out rose by 3.4%. A particularly obscene significant price increase was noted in meat categories, such as beef and pork. In 2022, the overall increase in food prices in the USA was 9.9%, which is a significant rise compared to previous years. At the same time, in other parts of the world, restaurant dining prices are also quite high. They fluctuate. For example, in Bangladesh, the average cost of a meal for two is just around 700 rubles, while in Iceland it reaches approximately almost 8,000 rubles. For Russia, this cost would be around 1,500 rubles. It is also worth noting that in cities, food prices can vary significantly. If we consider capitals, popular tourist spots such as famous landmarks, and local eateries in small towns, the difference can be colossal. So, to get a clearer comparison of prices, I suggest switching to basic necessities. Buckwheat on the shelves of Russian stores is a basic necessity. But as soon as it crosses the borders, suddenly, bam! It turns into an exotic delicacy. In America and Japan, half a kilo of this grain costs a whole lot of money, from 700 to 900 rubles. And if you decide to find it in Japan, be prepared to shell out 1,500 rubles per kilogram. Can you imagine the gap, considering the fact that in Russia it costs about 100 rubles? Now let's move on to potatoes, another product that clearly demonstrates the price difference. In Russia and many other CIS and European countries, it costs mere pennies. But not in South Korea and Japan. There, a kilogram of this root vegetable costs from 250 to 300 rubles. For comparison, in Russia, a kilo of potatoes costs about 30 rubles. This, of course, depends on the producer, whether it's peeled, whether it's washed or not, and so on. Nevertheless, the standard is approximately like that. Can you imagine how much a bucket of homemade French fries costs there? And here's another interesting detail. Excise taxes on cigarettes. In Russia, over 10 years, they have increased by, attention, 570%. And today, a pack of Marlboro here costs 200 rubles. But if you think that's expensive, imagine the surprise of a Russian smoker when they find out that in Australia, the same pack costs a whole 1,600 rubles. Well, what do you think? It's almost like buying yourself a kilogram of Japanese buckwheat. In America, the price of cigarettes varies greatly from state to state, but generally, a pack costs around 700 or 1,500 rubles. And where would we be without bread? Imagine you're in Russia, where a loaf of bread weighing 500 grams costs only 30 or 40 rubles. This is one of the lowest prices for bread in the world, as it can be found cheaper only in 17 countries. But what happens when we cross borders and embark on a journey through Europe? In Western, Central, and Eastern Europe, the price of a loaf remains reasonable, not exceeding 150 rubles. And now buckle up because we are heading to Norway, where the most expensive bread in the world awaits us. A whole 250 rubles for half a kilo. It seems Norwegians really know their stuff when it comes to bread baking. But Iceland is not far behind, offering bread at a price of 190 rubles for half a kilo. A similar situation is found in Switzerland, Sweden, and Austria, where a loaf costs 175, 160, and 135 rubles, respectively. And what awaits us in the New World? In America, half a kilo of bread will cost 200 rubles, and in Canada and Australia, about 150 rubles. Not bad, right? But let's talk about milk and eggs. By the way, a little note. Even in Russia, you can actually find a few smart Alecs who will sell a loaf of bread for 1,000 rubles, but maybe that's for another video. If we embark on a journey across Europe, what will we find there? The price of milk does not exceed 150 rubles. In Russia, the situation is even better. A liter can be purchased for 60 or 70 rubles, which seems like a quite reasonable price. And now let's take a look at the USA. It turns out that a standard package of milk there costs about the same as in Russia. But Canada surprises us, where a liter of milk will cost 114 rubles. But let's move further to Asia. And here we are in for a real surprise. In Hong Kong, a liter of milk costs 190 rubles, making it the most expensive in the world. And the Koreans, Chinese, and Japanese are not left out either. They pay 140, 125 for milk, and 110 rubles respectively. A product that is equally popular all over the world. Imagine, in Switzerland, this cozy country in the heart of Europe, the price for a dozen eggs reaches 450 rubles. Yes, not much, not little, almost half 1,000. One might think that people there are buying Fabergé eggs, not simple chicken ones. But the northern countries are not lagging behind in this egg rally. In Iceland, they ask for 400 rubles for 12 eggs, and in Norway, 350. And in Denmark, Austria, Greece, Israel, and even in faraway Australia, the price for a dozen eggs barely exceeds 200 rubles. In the USA and Canada, the situation is even calmer. There they ask for 155 and 170 rubles for eggs, respectively. The Chinese pay only 110 rubles for a dozen eggs. What about in Russia? If you don't consider the highest category, you can buy them for about 100 rubles on average. Although at the very end of 2023, there was some shortage and prices soared by 30% immediately. But literally within a couple of weeks, they started to gradually decrease. By the way, I used to buy eggs for 56 rubles, but now they cost 110. In general, almost like in Japan. Only Kazakhstan, India, Pakistan, and Tunisia can boast even lower prices. But let's talk about meat as well. I'll start with Russia, where a kilogram of beef round, a highly versatile meat for boiling, frying, and stewing, costs approximately about 650 rubles. But if you look at South America, you'll see that in Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina, meat is even cheaper. 440, 420, and even 340 rubles respectively. But what happens when we head to Europe? Here, meat prices rise from 600. From 50 rubles in Hungary to an astronomical 1,300 rubles in Italy. And by the way, our familiar friend again, Switzerland, breaks all records. 3,700 rubles. Norway follows Switzerland with a price of 2,000 rubles per kilogram. In the USA, the price of meat is 900 rubles per kilogram. In Australia, it's slightly below 800 rubles. And in China, it's 700 rubles. But in South Korea and Japan, there are connoisseurs of steaks. They must be ready to splurge. There, a kilogram of beef costs from 1,500 rubles. When it comes to vegetables, the most indicative and in demand worldwide are tomatoes. I'll start again with Russia, where a kilogram of tomatoes costs about 150 rubles in season, if you take the central part of the country. But if we go on a journey through Europe, we'll find that in many countries this price is even lower. For example, in Spain, a kilogram of tomatoes will cost 140 rubles, in Portugal and Greece 100 rubles, in Serbia 65 rubles, and in Albania it's only 50 rubles. China also delights with low prices for tomatoes. There they cost 85 rubles per kilogram. However, in the largest European countries, the situation is different. In Germany, a kilogram of tomatoes costs 250 rubles, in France 200. And now let's see how much tomatoes cost across the ocean. In the USA, a kilogram of tomatoes costs 300 rubles. And some organic options can reach up to 1,000 rubles per kilogram. Overall, not so cheap. And finally, our gaze falls on one of the simplest, yet beloved by many, fruits, the apple. Let's see how the prices for this humble yet important fruit vary in different parts of the world. In Russia, the price of apples is 85 rubles per kilogram, which seems quite affordable. But let's head east to Japan and South Korea and find out what's there. For a kilogram of juicy apples, they ask about 500 rubles. Why so expensive? Perhaps due to the special attention to the quality and varieties of fruits in these countries. Well, how are things in the USA? Here, a kilogram of apples costs 300 rubles, which is already significantly higher than in Russia. In Canada and Australia, prices are also above 250 rubles per kilogram. Traveling through South America, we see that their apples cost less than 100 rubles per kilogram. Meanwhile, in the United Kingdom, Germany and France, they ask for 150, 165 and 175 rubles respectively for this fruit. And now let's take a look at the technological apples. The prices of Apple products vary significantly, which makes purchasing these devices more advantageous in some countries than in others. For example, in Russia, the prices for the iPhone 15 Pro Max 128 GB range from 130 to 150,000 rubles depending on the retailer. After all, the phone is no longer supplied to the country officially, but comes through parallel import. At the same time, in the United States, where Apple is based, the same iPhone costs significantly less at $1,199, which is approximately equal to 110,000 rubles. However, one should consider the taxes, which can add from 1 to 8% to the price depending on the state. In other countries, prices also vary. For example, in Hong Kong, the iPhone 15 Pro Max 128 gigabytes costs 10,000 Hong Kong dollars, or approximately 115,000 rubles. And in India, it will cost almost 180,000 rubles. In Europe, prices are equally high, as in Italy, for example, where the iPhone 15 Pro Max 128 GB costs 1750 euros, which is about 170,000 rubles, including VAT. Prices for the iPad also vary significantly. In Hong Kong, the iPad Pro costs from 70 to 130,000 rubles, depending on the model and configuration, whereas in Denmark, prices for the same product start at only 100,000 rubles. By comparing Apple product prices in different countries, buyers can save significant amounts by choosing more favorable regions for purchase. The USA, Hong Kong, and some European countries, such as Germany, offer lower prices on Apple products, while in other countries like Turkey, prices can be significantly higher due to taxes and other local factors. There's food, cigarettes, and gadgets too. Now I suggest we delve into furniture. I decided to take IKEA as a basis, since almost everyone is familiar with this brand's products. Prices vary significantly across different countries, and this reflects a multitude of factors, including local energy costs, transportation, inflation, and exchange rates, as well as market demand. Comparing IKEA furniture prices in Poland and the Czech Republic is usually costlier in Poland. The Malm dresser, 160x78. Costs 400 zlotys in Poland, approximately 900 rubles, while in the Czech Republic its price is 700 euros, about 6,700 rubles. IKEA product prices also depend on how the retailer adapts to local market conditions. For example, in Belarus, where IKEA does not have an official presence, products are sold by intermediaries and are 50 or 60% more expensive than in other countries due to import and re-export costs. A similar situation is currently developing in Russia. Overall, IKEA product prices vary depending on the region. In some countries, such as the USA or European Union countries, prices may be lower due to local production and lower logistics costs, while in other countries, especially those where products are imported, prices may be higher due to additional transportation and tax expenses. And now, as promised, the most interesting part. Here we have reached the final chord of our gastronomic and technological beer journey. This beloved beverage, which is one of the most popular in the world. I'll start with Russia, where a standard bottle or can of beer with a volume of half a liter costs 59 rubles. This is quite a low price by global standards, cheaper only in Kazakhstan. But if we go across the ocean to the USA, we will see that there, half a liter of beer costs 150 rubles. And what about China? Here, the price is slightly higher, at 170 rubles, for the same portion. In Germany, Poland, and the Czech Republic, the prices are roughly the same. But the most expensive beer is found in the Middle Eastern countries, Qatar, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates. There, for half a liter of beer, you will have to pay 640, 340, and 275 rubles respectively. In short, these prices might shock beer enthusiasts who are used to more affordable prices. It's hard to judge a country's economic condition by the cost of beer or an IKEA dresser. The price is formed based on many factors and often fluctuates significantly even within a single country. Therefore, if you want to save easily, it's quite possible to buy certain equipment abroad. But most importantly, it's not the price of goods that determines the standard of living, but the level of salaries and taxes in the country. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, like this video if it was useful and interesting, and see you in the next videos. Bye.
هنعمل كلمة مش في قاموسنا. من 50 سنة والCID كان دايما موجود معاك. 50 سنة بنكبر وبنتطور وبنفرق عن أي حد. 50 سنة بنشتغل عشانك في صمت.
In 1985, Japanese diver Kiichiro Aratake was diving off the coast of Yonaguni Island. He could never have imagined that he would become part of one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of the 20th century. At a depth of about 80 feet underwater, he noticed gigantic stone terraces resembling stepped pyramids, enormous platforms, carved walls, staircases, and even something that looked like road solid appeared as if it had been built by intelligent beings. But here, underwater, archaeologists and geologists from all over the world immediately joined in to study this site. At first, it was assumed that this was simply a rare natural formation created by currents, winds, and time. However, soon perfectly straight angles, ideal lines, and even symbols resembling engravings were discovered. Moreover, it turned out that about 10,000 years ago, the sea level was much lower, and this place was on dry land. But if all of this is truly man-made, then it is older than any known civilization. The boldest hypothesis emerged: the lost continent of Mu, prehistoric civilizations unknown to us, traces of legendary peoples lost in the oceans. But none of these hypotheses has received 100% confirmation. The majority of the scientific community cautiously refers to Yonaguni as a natural wonder, although they do admit it does look almost too improbable. And yet, when looking at these truly giant staircases and massive platforms, you can't help but wonder, what if these are the mysterious remnants of a world we no longer remember? Who could have built them? And for what purpose? It's remarkable that official research on Yonaguni remains quite rare, as if someone doesn't want this question to be raised too loudly. But the strangest thing began when underwater cameras recorded unknown traces and mysterious movements around the site. At the beginning of the 20th century, off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, sponge divers accidentally stumbled upon a sunken ancient Greek ship. Among the wreckage bronze, marble, ceramics, they found something strange. It was a corroded bronze piece with visible gears. For a long time it was ignored, thought to be just a decoration. But in the 1950s, when more serious research began, the world was astonished. This object turned out to be a real mechanism with gears, dials, and inscriptions. Scientists dubbed it the Antikythera mechanism and began slowly unraveling its secrets. It turned out that this device is an ancient analog computer capable of predicting solar and lunar eclipses, showing the phases of the moon, and even calculating the dates of the Olympic Games. The only problem is that it dates back to the 2nd century BC. At that time, according to historians, technology of such a level simply did not exist. To build such a mechanism requires complex calculations, precise engineering, and an understanding of astronomy, which was believed to have emerged only many centuries later. Some scientists suggest that the Antikythera mechanism was part of a lost scientific tradition that, for some reason, did not survive to our days. Others hint at lost civilizations or unknown schools of ancient engineers. But most importantly, if this was not a one-of-a-kind artifact, it means that similar machines might still be hidden somewhere. And one day, perhaps, we will stumble upon an entire treasure trove of ancient technologies that will turn our history textbooks upside down. In 2007, Kazakh archaeologist Dmitry Dianov unexpectedly came across something strange while examining satellite images. In the steppes of Kazakhstan, gigantic figures could be seen squares, crosses, rings perfectly symmetrical, and so large that they can only be seen from the air. These gigantic drawings, created from earth and stone, were dubbed steppe geoglyphs. The discovery was immediately compared to the Nazca lines in Peru, but it turned out that the Kazakh geoglyphs are even more mysterious. Why? Because no one knows for sure who built them. Scientists date their age to approximately 1,000 or 2,000 years. But none of the known cultures of the region could have created such large-scale structures. Radiocarbon analysis shows that some of the geoglyphs appeared during an era when nomadic peoples lived in this area. But why would nomads build giant figures that can only be seen from above? Some suggest that they were astronomical markers, while others believe they were ritual or cult objects. And the strangest thing is that many local residents have always known about them, but considered them just part of the landscape, not attaching any significance to them. It was only with the development of satellite technology that these giant patterns came into the spotlight. What else is hidden in the steppes of Kazakhstan? After all, if such gigantic figures could remain unnoticed for so long, who knows what might be literally under our feet? A long time ago, in the Cappadocia region, on the territory of modern-day Turkey, people began to discover strange tunnels and caves. But it was only in the mid-20th century that the true scale of the discovery became clear. Archaeologists found entire underground cities multi-level complexes with ventilation shafts, wells, living quarters, and storage rooms. The most famous of them is Derinkuyu. This underground city descends more than 200 feet deep, has at least 8 levels, and could accommodate up to 20,000 people along with their livestock and food supplies. How were ancient people able to create such a complex structure without modern technology? Scientists believe that the cities were used as shelters during times of war and invasion. But questions remain. Who started the construction? How did they know how to build ventilation shafts so they wouldn't suffocate? Why do people keep discovering underground cities again and again, with some of them even connected by secret tunnels? Some local legends claim that these cities were not built by people, but by ancient peoples who were hiding from catastrophes on the surface. And although these are just legends, the scale of the underground structures amazes even modern engineers. And recently, archaeologists discovered sealed doors, behind which apparently new unexplored levels are hidden. Herodotus, the famous Greek historian, wrote about an incredible structure in Egypt, a huge labyrinth with thousands of holes, corridors, and inner courtyards. He claimed that this place was even more awe-inspiring than the pyramids. But over time, the labyrinth was lost. In the 21st century, archaeologists began new excavations in the Hawara region, where historians believe this legendary labyrinth was located. Using geophysical methods, they discovered massive stone structures beneath the sands that match Herodotus' descriptions. But the work quickly came to a halt due to a lack of funding and political obstacles. Those who have visited the site claim that something truly monumental is indeed hidden beneath Hawara. Some even suggest that ancient texts and knowledge lost to humanity might be stored there. So why did the work suddenly stop? Why are the Egyptian authorities in no hurry to resume the excavations? Perhaps the reason is that uncovering the secrets of this labyrinth could completely change our understanding of Egypt's history. Or maybe something is hidden there that is better left undisturbed for now. In 1990, in the Alps on the border between Italy and Austria, two tourists stumbled upon something strange. A human figure was protruding from the ice. At first, they thought it was the body of a modern mountaineer who had perished in the snow. But when rescuers reached the site, they realized they were looking at a mummy over 5,000 years old. This is how Ötzi, the Iceman, was discovered. Ötzi was so well preserved that his clothing, footwear, and even the contents of his stomach remained intact. Research showed that before his death, he ate meat and bread and drank water from a mountain stream. Wounds were found on his body, including an arrow in his shoulder. It is likely that he was killed. But the most astonishing thing was Ötzi's equipment. He had a copper axe, a flint knife, a quiver with arrows, as well as complex herbal preparations. This indicates a high level of knowledge for that time. Scientists studied his teeth, hair, bones, and even his tattoos, of which he had more than 60. It turned out that they corresponded to acupuncture points. It is possible that Ötzi used them for treatment. It's amazing that people already possessed such methods back then. But the strangest thing happened after the excavation. Several people connected to the study of Ötzi died under mysterious circumstances. This gave rise to rumors about the curse of the Iceman. Of course, official science dismisses such claims, but the number of coincidences is truly unsettling. And here's what's intriguing. Some believe that other similar mummies, possibly even older, may be hidden in the Alpine glaciers. In the 1930s, workers clearing the jungles of Costa Rica for banana plantations suddenly stumbled upon perfectly round stone spheres. They came in various sizes from a few inches to 8 feet in diameter and amazed people with their perfect shape. These stone giants were not part of any rock formations or mountains. It was clear that they had been made by someone. Who made them, and for what purpose? Scientists have studied hundreds of these spheres but have not found any convincing answers. The technology used to create them remains a mystery. The local peoples did not possess tools capable of carving such perfect spheres. Some of the spheres are made from granodiorite material not found in the surrounding area. This means they were also transported over long distances. There are many theories, from astronomical instruments and calendars to symbols of power or religious objects. Some conspiracy theorists even believe that the stone spheres were part of a navigation system for ancient seafarers or evidence of contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. But the main problem is that most of the spheres have been destroyed. Workers blew them up with dynamite, hoping to find gold inside. Archaeological excavations were carried out chaotically, and many spheres were taken away to private collections. Today, only remnants of this mysterious history remain. And yet, in the most remote corners of the jungle, new spheres are occasionally discovered, covered in moss, as if they are just waiting for their time. For a long time, Herakleion was considered a myth. According to legend, this Egyptian port city sank beneath the waves thousands of years ago. But in the year 2000, French archaeologist Frank Godiot and his team discovered it on the floor of the Mediterranean Sea, not far from the mouth of the Nile. What they discovered shocked the world. Giant statues, temples, coins, jewelry, ritual artifacts of it lay beneath layers of silt and sand. In its time, Herakleion was the largest port in Egypt, serving as a hub for trade routes between east and west. But one day, the city quite literally vanished beneath the waves. Why? Scientists suggest that the cause was earthquakes and the gradual subsidence of the ground. But that doesn't explain one thing. How could an entire city disappear almost without a trace from historical records? Why have so few written accounts of it survived? Moreover, exploration of the sunken Herakleion continues, and every year archaeologists discover new treasures. Among them are mysterious scrolls and artifacts that have yet to be deciphered. There is a theory that relics connected to the cult of Isis and Osiris may have been kept in Herakleion, and perhaps even relics tied to more ancient beliefs that predated the Egyptian myths we know today. What else is hidden beneath the sands of the seafloor? Some divers claim to have seen sunken tunnels leading to new parts of the city. Easter Island is one of the most isolated places on the planet. But it is here that hundreds of stone giants, the Moai, are located. These statues, up to 30 feet tall and weighing more than 80 tons, are astonishing in their grandeur. And although almost everyone has heard of them, only in recent decades have studies begun to reveal their true secrets. It was once believed that the Moai were just heads, but archaeologists discovered that they also have bodies buried underground. Moreover, inscriptions and symbols are carved on these bodies, the meaning of which remains unsolved to this day. How could the inhabitants of a small island move such gigantic stones? Research has shown that most likely the statues were rocked and made to walk using ropes. This requires incredible coordination and knowledge. But the most intriguing thing is that many of the statues were deliberately toppled face down. Why? There is a theory that at a certain point, a social or religious upheaval occurred on the island, and the worship of the Moai was stopped. Some even believe that there was a clash between two cultures or sects here. And to this day, no one can fully explain how a small civilization, lacking metal and wheels, managed to erect such grand monuments. Did they possess knowledge that we no longer have? Interestingly, in recent years, hidden caves and ritual structures have been discovered on the island, which may shed light on these questions. In recent decades, archaeology has gained a powerful tool LiDAR technology that allows researchers to scan the ground through the jungle canopy. And one of the most exciting areas of its application has turned out to be in Central America, in the lands of the ancient Maya. With the help of LiDAR, archaeologists have discovered thousands of previously unknown structures: pyramids, roads, walls, and terraces. It turned out that Maya cities were much larger than we had thought. Some of them merged into giant agglomerations with populations of hundreds of thousands of people. This completely changes our understanding of the scale of their civilization. The discovery of a giant network of roads connecting the cities and an irrigation system was especially striking, as these testify to the complex organization of their economy. This raises the question: if the Maya were so advanced, why did their civilization collapse? Catastrophe, internal conflicts, climate change scientists are still debating. But LiDAR is also uncovering other secrets. In recent years, structures have begun to be found that do not fit into the known architectural styles of the Maya. Some of them may be traces of even more ancient cultures about which we know nothing yet. And the most intriguing of all recent scans have revealed the presence of huge underground cavities beneath well-known temples. What is hidden in these underground chambers? There are no answers yet, but archaeologists are already preparing expeditions. In 1985, archaeologists in Bulgaria excavated a burial site that was immediately dubbed the Bulgarian Troy. They found a tomb filled with gold items: rings, necklaces, goblets, weapons, and most importantly, magnificent golden masks. These artifacts date back to the 5th century BC and are connected to the ancient Thraciansa people, about whom we know surprisingly little. The Thracians were mentioned by the Greeks and Romans as wild barbarians, but the discovery showed that this was a highly developed society with skilled craftsmen, a complex religion, and powerful kings. The golden masks were funerary symbols of power, and the burials indicated that there was an elite here whose wealth was comparable to that of the Egyptian pharaohs. But even more astonishing is that these finds were made in a place that had previously been considered just ordinary hilly terrain. Who could have imagined that such treasures were hidden beneath our feet? Archaeologists believe that Bulgaria may still hold dozens more such burial sites. They just haven't been excavated yet. And here's what is especially intriguing. Some of the golden masks are adorned with strange symbols that have yet to be deciphered. What if this is part of a lost language or a system of signs that could reveal new chapters in the history of Europe? Recently, archaeologists received information about yet another burial mound, which might be even larger. In recent years, archaeologists in Norway have made several astonishing discoveries. Using ground-penetrating radar, they have found entire Viking ships buried underground. These vessels, dating from the 9th and 10th centuries, were used for the burials of chieftains and nobility. Previously, finds of this scale were extremely rare, the famous Osberg ship, for example. But the new discoveries show that Viking burial ships were much more widespread than we previously thought. Moreover, remains of settlements, ritual complexes, and workshops have been found nearby. This allows us to see the organization of Viking life in a new light. Research shows that the Vikings were not just raiders, as they are often portrayed, but also skilled traders, sailors, and builders. Their ships had outstanding engineering features. They were light, maneuverable, and capable of crossing the Atlantic. But the most intriguing thing is the new data about Viking routes. Judging by the findings, they ventured much farther south than previously thought, and may even have had contact with the Muslim world. Among the artifacts, there are items brought from the Arab Caliphate and Byzantium. And who knows, maybe soon archaeologists will uncover the legendary ships that, according to the sagas, set out on voyages about which history is still silent. For a long time, it was believed that Neanderthals were primitive, crude beings who were inferior to modern humans in every way. But archaeological discoveries of recent decades are forcing us to reconsider this view. At Neanderthal sites, complex tools, ornaments, works of art, and most importantly, burials that indicate rituals have been discovered. This means that Neanderthals possessed abstract thinking, the ability for symbolic perception of the world, and possibly even the beginnings of religion. Scientists have found shells painted with pigments, feathers strung on cords, and even musical instruments like flutes made from animal bones. All of this points to a much more complex culture than we previously assumed. Moreover, genetic studies show that Neanderthals interbred with the ancestors of modern humans, and part of their DNA still lives on in us today. One of the most astonishing facts is the recent discoveries suggesting that Neanderthals may have engaged in painting, and quite sophisticated painting at that. And if this is confirmed, it will mean we have to completely rewrite the history of art. But there is also more mysterious evidence, traces of technologies that we have not yet been able to fully explain. Did Neanderthals possess knowledge that we do not expect? Some archaeologists are already openly saying that we have underestimated these ancient relatives. In the mountains of Peru, archaeologists have found traces of ancient rope bridges that connected mountain valleys and Inca cities. These bridges were made from braided grass ropes and could support hundreds of pounds of weight. The secret of their strength lies in a unique weaving technique that was passed down from generation to generation. The most amazing thing is that some of these bridges still exist to this day. They are renewed every year by local communities, preserving ancient traditions. But excavations have shown that the network of bridges was much more extensive than previously thought. It spanned thousands of miles, connecting cities, fortresses, and terraces. Archaeologists studied the anchor points of these bridges and concluded that Inca engineers possessed remarkable knowledge of materials, load calculations, and even vibrations. Without metal, without writing, without wheels, they created a transportation system comparable to Roman roads. There is evidence that some bridges served not only for transportation, but also for rituals. For example, on special days, ceremonies related to the gods of the mountains and the sun were held on them. And recent discoveries show that beneath many bridges, there are hidden chambers and vaults that may have been used to store treasures. Perhaps behind every mountain trail, there are secrets we don't even suspect. In Kenya, archaeologists have found the oldest known tools, which are estimated to be over 3 million years old. These are stone tools that were made long before the emergence of the genus Homo, to which we belong. This discovery literally shook the scientific world because it was previously believed that only members of the genus Homo were capable of making tools. But these findings show that much more ancient ancestors already possessed complex motor skills and knowledge of materials. They selected suitable stones, chipped off pieces to create sharp edges, and used them for processing food or other tasks. This means that the beginning of human technological evolution needs to be pushed much further back than previously thought. Or perhaps it needs to be reconsidered altogether. Who knows how many more ancient tools are still hidden beneath the African savannas? Recent excavations show that near the sites where ancient tools have been found, there are even older layers that may hold traces of those we don't even know about yet. Archaeologists are already preparing new expeditions. In 1974, Chinese farmers stumbled upon strange clay figures while digging a well near the city of Xi'an. This is how one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of the 20th century was made: the terracotta army of Emperor Qin Shi Huang. Thousands of clay warriors, horses, and chariots, all life-sized, each with a unique face, clothing details, and weaponry. This astonishing burial site was created to accompany the emperor in the afterlife. But interestingly, the emperor's own tomb has not yet been opened. It is believed that inside lies a gigantic mausoleum with models of palaces, rivers of mercury, and countless treasures. However, Chinese authorities are in no hurry to conduct excavations, fearing the destruction of artifacts. Moreover, there are concerns that the mercury levels inside are so high that excavations could be hazardous to health. Meanwhile, archaeologists continue to discover new figures, including acrobats, musicians, and officials. This demonstrates how complex and well thought out the preparation of the mausoleum was. But what is hidden at the center? The mystery remains unsolved to this day, and perhaps its revelation will completely change our understanding of ancient China. Recently in Africa, archaeologists discovered a human skull that is about 300,000 years old. This is the oldest representative of Homo sapiens ever found. But the main point is not its age, but its shape. The skull is different from those of modern humans. It combines both primitive and modern features, which calls into question the linear understanding of evolution. If previously it was believed that Homo sapiens appeared about 200,000 years ago, now this boundary is shifting. Moreover, the discovery suggests that different groups of Homo sapiens may have coexisted and evolved in parallel rather than sequentially. This opens up a whole host of questions. How many ancient human lineages do we still not know about? Did they have their own technologies, their own art, their own rituals? Why did some of them disappear while others survived? Scientists believe that Africa still holds many such surprises and that the most important discoveries are yet to come. Who knows, perhaps new findings will force us to completely rethink who we are and where we came from. And so, we've reached the finale, 20 real archaeological discoveries, each of which not only amazes but also broadens the horizons of our understanding. These finds show that history is not a finished book, but an exciting, endless quest where every new page can change everything. And perhaps the most truly thrilling discovery is still waiting for its moment. The world is on the brink of a technological revolution that will transform everything from medicine to transportation. China is already taking the first steps into this future, leaving competitors far behind. Are we ready for the changes? Flying cars. Shanghai, the year 2025. Dozens of flying cars move above the skyscrapers. Like a swarm of futuristic dragonflies, they glide silently through the air. This is not science fiction, but Chinese eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. They are changing the concept of transportation. In the past 2 years, China has turned the dream of air taxis into reality. The country has outpaced the West. The secret to success is revolutionary batteries, solid-state batteries with an energy density of 500 watt-hours per kilogram. They allow the vehicles to cover 250 miles without recharging, like from New York to Washington. For example, the EHang 216EA vehicle is capable of carrying 2 passengers. The flight range is up to 19 miles. Charging takes about 10 minutes. The Aerofuja cargo drone delivers up to half a ton of cargo. It operates in hard-to-reach mountainous areas, places where no truck can go. The real shock for the West is the scale of implementation. While the USA is discussing testing regulations, China has already completed over 10,000 commercial flights. A factory has been built in Guangzhou. It produces about 1,000 eVTOLs per year. What does this mean for the world? Firstly, traffic jams might become a thing of the past. Flying across the city will become accessible and fast. Secondly, China gains a new level of influence. The technology is already being purchased by more than 18 countries. But there is also a dark side. Military drones based on the same platforms could change the balance of power in the region. Driverless taxis. An ordinary day in Chinese megacities. You leave your house, open an app, and within a minute, a driverless car arrives for you. This is not science fiction. Robotaxis here have already transported 7 million passengers. The secret to success is revolutionary technology. Baidu Apollo's artificial intelligence processes 1,000 road scenarios per second. It easily handles even the most reckless traffic violators. For comparison, American counterparts like Waymo handle only 2 to the 100 scenarios. Chinese robotaxis have already traveled 20 million miles without serious accidents. This distance is equivalent to 80 trips around the world, a true breakthrough in scale. While the US is testing robotaxis in 5 cities, China has already launched them in 65. The cost of a ride is only $2 to $3. This is 3 times cheaper than a regular taxi. By 2030, the market will grow to $50 billion. What does this mean for us? The transportation revolution has already begun. Traffic jams will be reduced by 30%, emissions will be halved. But there is a downside. 2 million drivers may lose their jobs. Humanoid robots. Imagine a world where your coworker is a humanoid robot. It doesn't just assemble cars in a factory. It can run marathons. This is not science fiction. This is China in the year 2025. While the West showcases individual prototypes, Chinese humanoids are already working in factories. They assist in hospitals and even appear in sports arenas. The secret to success is unique technology and an affordable price. The Unitary DJI-1 robot costs $16,000. This is 10 times cheaper than the American counterpart from Boston Dynamics. It has already become a social media star, performing complex combat moves and dancing. The medical assistant GR1 lifts a patient weighing 110 pounds. That's like an adult man. In April 2025, 21 robots participated in the Beijing Half Marathon. Many of them ran faster than humans. But the main breakthrough is in the industry. At BYD factories, Walker S1 robots perform 70% of operations. This reduces costs by a third. China plans to produce 500 humanoids for every 10,000 workers by 2025, 5 times more than in the USA. What does this mean for us? The revolution has already begun. Humanoids will improve elderly care, make production cheaper, but also leave millions of people without jobs. Artificial intelligence. Next-generation artificial intelligence is already here. Systems that solve complex mathematical problems better than professors, write code more efficiently than experienced programmers. This is not science fiction. In 2025, the Chinese models DeepSeek and QW revolutionize the AI world. While the West is increasing model parameters, China has chosen the path of intellectual efficiency. The secret of success is a unique reinforcement learning technology. The DeepSeek R1 model, with 671 billion parameters, shows astonishing results. It solves 80% of the American mathematical Olympiad problems, writes code with 66% accuracy, and consumes 20 times fewer resources than OpenAI's counterparts. Its younger sibling, the QW30OB, has only 32 billion parameters, but surpasses many Western developments, and even works on a regular gaming computer. A true breakthrough in accessibility, using the QW30OB cost only 20 cents per million requests, cheaper than a cup of coffee. China has opened the source code of its models. This allows thousands of developers to create new applications. Already today, the technologies are used in financial modeling, logistics, and in preparation for the World Games of 2025. What does this mean for us? The AI revolution has become a reality. The professions of programmers and analysts will change drastically. The cost of software development will decrease significantly. But there is also a downside. China controls 70% of the supply chains for AI components. This provides an unprecedented technological advantage. Brain-computer interfaces. A person completely paralyzed after an accident regains the ability to communicate, simply by the power of thought. This is no longer science fiction, but the reality of Chinese brain-computer interfaces. In 2025, China makes a breakthrough in neurotechnology, leaving even Elon Musk's ambitious projects behind. The secret to success is revolutionary, non-invasive technologies. The Brain Talker device, resembling a regular headset, allows text input at a speed of 50 words per minute, faster than the average person types. The system does not require surgical intervention, unlike its American counterparts. The new bilateral interface from Tianjin is 100 times more efficient than Western developments. Moreover, it consumes 1,000 times less energy. But a real breakthrough in medicine. By 2027, Chinese doctors plan to restore speech and movement to thousands of patients with strokes and spinal cord injuries. The first trials on primates showed astounding results. Monkeys controlled a mechanical arm with 95% accuracy. What does this mean for us? A new era of human-machine interaction is approaching. Technologies that seemed like science fiction just yesterday will become available for a few $1,000s. But there is also a downside. Chinese BCI could gain access to our thoughts. This raises serious questions about privacy and security. Quantum technologies. Imagine a computer that solves tasks in a few hours. Even the most powerful supercomputers cannot handle them in billions of years. This is already the reality of Chinese quantum technologies in 2025. While the West is testing laboratory prototypes, China is launching mass production and deploying the world's first global quantum communication network. The secret of China's success is unprecedented investments and breakthroughs. The computer demonstrates quantum supremacy. It solves the most complex molecular modeling tasks, 1,000,000 times faster than American counterparts. And the Xiaohong chip, with 504 qubits, developed by the Chinese Academy of Sciences. It has become the most powerful in the world and opens new horizons for artificial intelligence and cryptography. But the real revolution is in quantum communication. The MOSI satellite provides absolutely secure channels between continents. A ground network spanning 3,000 miles is already operational, used for banking transactions and government communications. What does this mean for us? The world is on the brink of a technological revolution. Quantum computing will accelerate drug development and logistics. Costs will decrease by 20 to 30%. But these same technologies can break modern encryption systems. Data security will be at risk. New energy. Imagine a nuclear reactor and it cannot overheat. It does not require water for cooling and runs on fuel that will last for 20,000 years. This is not science fiction, this is a Chinese thorium reactor. It is already operational today in the Gobi Desert. While the world debates nuclear energy, China has made a revolution. The first industrial installation on molten salts in the world has been launched. The secret to success is its unique design. Unlike traditional reactors, the Chinese TMSRLF-1 specifically utilizes liquid salt instead of water and solid fuel as its primary coolant. This makes it absolutely safe. Even in the event of an accident, the melt will simply solidify. No catastrophes like Fukushima. Thorium is used as fuel. China has more thorium than coal, and it is not suitable for creating nuclear weapons. The real breakthrough is its efficiency. 2 pounds of thorium produce more energy than 500,000 pounds of coal. The waste from such a reactor is hazardous for only 500 years, compared to 10,000 years for conventional nuclear power plants. By 2029, China will launch the first commercial station. The capacity is 60 megawatts. By 2035, they plan to build dozens of such installations. What does this mean for us? An energy revolution is inevitable. Thorium reactors will provide cheap electricity without harmful emissions. But there is also a downside. China, controlling this technology, will gain enormous influence over global energy. AI chip. Imagine a computer chip capable of training artificial intelligence without the involvement of Western technologies. This is already a reality. The Huawei Ascend.910D Gigabit is a Chinese processor that in 2025 challenged NVIDIA's monopoly in the AI chip market. The secret to success is its unique architecture. The Ascend 910D is manufactured at Chinese SMIC factories using a 7-nanometer process. It demonstrates performance comparable to the NVIDIA H100 flagship. Moreover, the cost of the Chinese chip is 30% lower. But the real breakthrough is in scaling. A cloud matrix cluster of 384 such chips delivers 300 petaflops. This is twice as powerful as the best NVIDIA systems. However, there is a price to pay for this. The energy consumption of the Chinese system is almost 4 times higher. What does this mean? The technological map of the world is changing before our eyes. Chinese companies can now train complex AI models without worrying about sanctions. This will accelerate the development of Chinese AI by 2 to 3 times, but at the same time, it will create the threat of a technological divide. Biotechnology. Imagine a world where medicines are grown from bacteria, fuel is produced from algae, and animal feed is made from industrial emissions. This is no longer science fiction, this is biomanufacturing in China, in the year 2025. While the West discusses the green economy, China is making a revolution, turning biotechnology into a new engine of its economy. The secret of China's success lies in unique innovations. Scientists have already learned to convert carbon dioxide from metallurgical plants into 5,000 tons of protein feed annually. This is enough to feed 1 million pigs. And bioreactors with genetically modified bacteria produce cancer drugs 10 times cheaper than traditional methods. But the real breakthrough is in scale. China already controls 24% of global pharmaceutical production, surpassing Europe and catching up with the USA. And very soon, investments in biotechnology will double, and the number of new drugs produced in China will triple. What does this mean for us? Medicine will become more accessible and the environment cleaner. But there is also a downside. China may establish a monopoly on key biotechnologies, as has already happened with solar panels. Chinese Android. Imagine an operating system. It works equally well on a phone, smartwatch, TV, and in a car, without delays, with perfect synchronization. This is Harmony OS from Huawei, a technological masterpiece. Already installed on 1 billion devices, it has challenged the monopoly of Android and iOS. The secret of success is its revolutionary architecture. Unlike Android, Harmony OS uses a microkernel. Its size is just 1,000th of Linux. This makes the system lightning fast and practically immune to viruses. The system automatically distributes resources between devices, turning them into a single supercomputer. For example, you start watching a movie on your phone and continue on the TV without manual connection. A true breakthrough in independence? After the American sanctions, Huawei created Harmonious Next, a fully autonomous OS, without traces of Android. Already, 4,000 popular applications have been adapted. By 2025, their number will exceed 1 million. What does this mean for us? The technological landscape is changing before our eyes. In China, Harmonious has already surpassed iOS, capturing 17% of the market. For users, smoother performance, new possibilities. But there is a downside. The world might split into 2 digital universes, Western and Chinese. Maglev technology. The train flies above the rails without a single wheel, accelerating to 600